A senator just accused Marco Rubio of causing the deaths of hundreds of thousands of children, and his response will leave you speechless. Don't miss the end.
I want to turn to the issue my colleagues have mentioned, and that is there is a legal way to restructure the Secretary of State's department and USAID specifically. But what we saw on February 3rd was Elon Musk say, over the weekend, I tossed USAID into the wood chipper. That's a pretty profound weekend. It didn't involve consultation with Congress over the consequences. There was no rewriting of the law. There was no discussion of what funds could be delayed, frozen, redirected. And the result is different groups have estimated how many people have died to date and will die over the course of a year or a prolonged period as a result of the destruction of the weekend of February 1st and 2nd. Did Elon Musk have your support in putting USAID into the wood chipper?
Well, I don't think that's a X post, or what I guess you're imagining a social media post, is not a government act.
Not at all. That's a quote. That's what he said.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, that's what he said, but that's not ultimately what happened as acting director. Is all these decisions
Did his actions have your full support?
The ones that I signed off on, yes, which is the ones that
Of
happened.
what Elon Musk did with USAID?
No, but understand, these are contracts. All these
Did he
contracts.
do it without or with your support? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, not with my support, it was my
team,
actions.
his Doge team did a lot of cancellations very, very quickly, and it fired a lot of people. It wasn't clear to me whether that had your support or not.
The Doge team didn't do anything. I did it. I was the one that made the decisions. I went through contracts, literally spreadsheets, line by line. I remember being in a hotel, I believe in Guatemala, going through line by line on spreadsheets of contracts that were canceled, contracts that were approved, contracts that were amended. These are all contracts.
So in that case, I'll put the responsibility with you since you're taking credit for it rather than with Elon Musk. But the Boston School of Public Health has a kind of a website where they post their estimated deaths as a result of the actions that were taken to dismantle USAID. And they're updating it continuously. So you go to it, the numbers keep changing. They have a one-year estimate, but they also have what they estimate has happened to today. And as of today, they estimate that the actions taken in putting USAID in the wood chipper, child malnutrition, 53,500 more deaths. And I'm rounding off because the numbers are continuously changing. Child diarrhea, 45,400 more deaths. Child pneumonia, 59,200 more deaths. Malaria, 25,100 more deaths. So what happened that weekend has resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of children. And the estimate for the end of this year is much, much higher. This happened because the law was not followed for consultation with Congress, analysis, bringing in experts, holding hearings. How do you kind of accept what you just put forward, that it was your action to cancel these contracts? Your contracts in this fashion, freezing fund, firing individuals, has resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of children.
That's false. That's fake. That's just not true. That's a study based on if we canceled every one of these programs permanently. Okay, and I'm reading it right here because I'm glad you brought it up. It assumes a near total freeze in U.S. foreign aid for HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases. There is not a total freeze. 85% of PEPFAR recipients are receiving their care right now. But the numbers you're saying, those aren't real numbers. I understand that's what the school said in the worst case dramatic scenario. And even then, I think it's exaggerated. But there's just no evidence of the fact that, I don't remember what the numbers are, 100,000 children have starved to death in the last 4 months because the United States made reductions to USAID. Well, that first of all is pretty atrocious. That would mean that nobody else in the world is doing anything. We're taking care of the entire planet?
Well, I must say, I think your response does not fit with what the published results were, but there's other groups that have done this as well. There's a study in Nature with healthcare experts from a whole number of leading universities, and they said basically if you shut down USAID, and it may not be fully shut down, but my colleagues who follow this closely say, it's 80, 90% shut down. And Nature study, or published in Nature, said, look, because of what has happened, we will see some 15 million additional deaths over 15 years just from HIV, producing 14 million orphans, and another 10 million people children and adults dying from malnutrition, tuberculosis, diarrhea, malaria, and other diseases. And there's even higher numbers from the Friends of the Global Fight Against AIDS. I think it's this rash shutdown without due process of law, that is not coming and doing it in collaboration with rewriting the law, freezing funds, canceling these contracts without consultation, that you have exacted enormous harm on the world.
Again, those numbers you're saying are staggering and unrealistic. The reality of it is, if what you're saying is that unless the United States funds foreign aid at these levels in perpetuity, the world's going to suffer 15 million deaths in 15 years, and every country should be voting for everything we want at the UN.
The number was 15,
because we're basically funding and feeding the world.
15 million in the study of nature, yes, from the shutdown of these programs.
Thank you.
This exchange between Senator Merkley and Marco Rubio is not just another political argument. It's a chilling reminder of how decisions made in Washington ripple across the entire globe, shaping the fate of millions who may never know the names of the people debating their future. Merkley laid out a devastating case, citing studies, statistics, and expert analysis, showing that the abrupt dismantling of USAID programs wasn't just a bureaucratic reshuffle, it was a direct assault on the fragile lifelines that keep children alive in the poorest corners of the world. Numbers like 53,000 children dying from malnutrition, 45,000 more from diarrhea, nearly 60,000 from pneumonia, and tens of thousands more from malaria are not just abstract figures. They represent faces, families, futures erased because contracts were cancelled and aid was frozen. Rubio's defense, dismissing these projections as fake or unrealistic worst-case scenarios, shows the staggering gap between those calculating policy on spreadsheets and those burying their children because of those same spreadsheets. What makes this moment even more haunting is the cold, bureaucratic detachment with which Rubio admits he personally signed off on the cancellations, claiming responsibility while simultaneously denying the consequences. Merkley pressed him with brutal clarity. If your decisions led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of children, how can you possibly defend them? Rubio's answer was to retreat into technicalities, insisting that 85% of programs still function and that no mass deaths can be proven. But studies from Harvard, Nature, and global health experts contradict that claim, warning that millions more deaths over the next decade and a half will stem from these policies. 15 million additional deaths, 14 million orphans, 10 million more lost to malnutrition and preventable diseases. These aren't just estimates. They are warnings carved out of data, history, and the lived experience of every community that has ever relied on American foreign aid. Merkley framed it perfectly. This was not a policy reform guided by debate, consultation, or law. It was a rash, unilateral move, executed without due process, without congressional oversight, without humanity. Whether driven by political ideology, budgetary maneuvering, or the influence of outsiders like Elon Musk, the result is the same. Children pay the price with their lives. And here's where the real discomfort lies. If Rubio can so easily dismiss hundreds of thousands of children dying today, what will stop him or anyone else from ignoring millions more tomorrow? That's the question Merkley forces us to wrestle with, and that's why this exchange matters. It's not just about visas or aid contracts or foreign policy jargon. It's about the raw, brutal truth that decisions made behind closed doors can mean life or death for those with no voice at all. In the end, Rubio may think he won the argument by batting away statistics and studies, but the haunting math of human suffering tells a different story. And if we don't hold leaders accountable when evidence of mass death is laid at their feet, then the next tragedy won't just be a possibility, it will be a certainty. If you found this breakdown powerful, make sure to subscribe, drop a comment with your thoughts, and stay tuned, because more reactions like this are coming your way. Your support keeps this channel alive and helps us keep exposing the truth.